So today we'll take a look at growing summer savory. This is a wonderful herb with a peppery oregano flavor, and it's not winter savory, which is not as commonly used as summer savory. Also, winter savory is a perennial, which will come back for you every year, but summer savory you have to plant it every year because it's an annual. So I'll just share some things with you that I've learned over the past 5 years. I've grown summer savory on and off. I'll show you how I plant it, just some of the things I've done to take care of it. Not really much at all. It's very easy to take care of. And then ways that I can use it and store it. So we'll start by planting our summer savory. This pack of seeds I'm using here is about 5 years old, and you'll get better germination if you use seeds which are only a year old. But this is all I had, so I thought I would go ahead and use them. So whenever you are starting any seeds indoors, make sure that you are not reusing potting soil, which could contain pathogens. You want to use a sterile seed starting mix, and make sure that it is specifically labeled for starting seeds. And I also make my own, and I have a video on my channel if you'd like to check that out. So we start with some sterile seed starting mix, and you'll just put a seed on the top of the soil. Summer savory seeds require sunlight for germination. You can push them down a little bit to make sure they have contact with the soil, and then you'll just water them in. Make sure to give your cells a tag so that you know you've already put some seeds there. You'll want to start summer savory indoors when it's getting close to your last frost date, because summer savory cannot take those cold temperatures. And so I just kept it misted. I had a humidity dome on top of the cell tray for a little while, and about 20 days later, one seed germinated. So you can see these older seeds did not do very well. So it took about 20 days for it to pop up. So another tip I'd like to share with you about starting your seeds indoors is whenever you are moving them outdoors, you need to do what's called harden them off, which is basically you're just going to acclimate the new tiny little baby plant to a new climate outside. So we've started it indoors, and so I just gently move it outside into a shady area on and off for about a week. I'll put it in the shade about 2 hours, maybe the first day, and I'll just slowly move it into the sun by the end of the week. So you want to do that very slow. This will also help prevent what's called transplant shock. So when you move it into its final location, whether it's a container or a raised bed, then it won't go through too much of a shock and just start wilting over and possibly die. So I decided to plant my summer savory in my herb container garden, and I sprinkled out just a few more seeds to see if those might come up, because I only had this one little seedling that sprouted for me indoors, and I had already hardened it off, and so into the soil it went. So in this soil here, it has been amended with compost. I also have a video on how I make my potting soil if you'd like to look at that. Summer savory does best in soil which has drainage. So whenever you're especially growing in a container, make sure you have some kind of amendment to your soil, like vermiculite or perlite, which will help that water drain away from the plant, because you don't want your plants just sitting in water unless that's how you're growing it hydroponically, because your plant could experience what's called root rot. So just a few weeks later, my plant just took off. The temperatures were wonderful. They were in the mid-70s to 80s, and it just really liked those temperatures, and I didn't really feed it anything. Summer savory doesn't require a lot of fertilizer or anything like that, but none of my other seeds came up. I had some weeds coming up through there, but no more summer savory. So this was my only plant. And it was just doing really well. A few weeks later, it actually started to bloom, and whenever you use summer savory, you want to, or most of your herbs even, you want to cut them before they start to bloom. Now, it's certainly fine to go ahead and use your flowers. They have a lot of flavor too, but since I was going to dry this, I decided I better go ahead and cut it. Really, you want to cut your herbs and dry them before they bloom because they're much more full of the oils then. So I did find a little problem here, and that was I had a little worm on my summer savory, so always be checking for those. So when you cut back your herbs, leave about anywhere from 4 to 6 inches of the plant there, and that way it won't cause it too much stress and you might get some regrowth. So inside we go. We want to give it a quick wash, especially since I saw that little worm on there. The best way to store your summer savory is to dry it because it retains a lot of the flavor, unlike a lot of other annual plants and herbs that you might grow. So I set aside a few stems that I would put in my refrigerator so that I could use them fresh. And so you can see for 1 month they kept great in a little plastic bag that I wrapped in a damp paper towel. I also kept some on my windowsill to use that day. So when I dry my herbs, I use the Excalibur dehydrator, and it has an herb setting on it and it works great. I just really enjoy using this for my herbs. Now, since I didn't have a lot, I removed some of the trays so I'd have a little bit more air circulation. This was a 9-tray dehydrator, so I removed about 4 of the trays to give it a little bit more air circulation, and then I set it on the herb setting. So they dried pretty quick. I think it took me about 10 hours to get a nice crispy texture on the leaves. And it's real easy to remove the leaves just by running your finger right across. You'll want to make sure you're wearing gloves when you do that, just so you don't introduce any kind of oils or moisture to your newly dried herbs. And then you'll just want to pack these in an airtight container in a dark, cool area, and that's the best way to store your dried herbs. So into a spice jar they go, and I gave them a label. Now I did have some fresh savory that I was saving to make some green beans. At this time we had some wonderful green beans coming in from the garden, and it's my understanding that one of the most popular ways to use summer savory is with green beans, and that's a German style of green bean, and I'll put a video up on how I made these, but it sure did give it a nice and unique flavor. Summer savory is also used in many spice blends. So there you go. Maybe you can also try to grow summer savory wherever you live, and thank you so much for watching. Y'all have a beautiful day.